I would do a lifetime sentence and kill you over my bitch, my nigga. That's my bitch. Stop texting her, my nigga. I will buy that bitch some flowers for Valentine's Day, not you. That's my job. And on the dead homies, nigga, I will kill you over some dog. You better back up and leave my bitch alone, nigga.
I'm doing a video, right?
This is 35-year-old Jarrett Maize, a devoted father of 7 from Detroit's East Side whose life was cut short in broad daylight outside an apartment complex that had already seen too much violence. On the morning of July 4th, 2024, just before 11 a.m., police were called to the Peachtree Apartments in Clinton Township, Michigan, after reports of gunfire. When officers arrived, Jarrett was found lying in the parking lot, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds, including one to the head. Despite emergency efforts, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Just hours earlier, families across Michigan were preparing for cookouts, fireworks, and holiday plans, unaware that the day would end with another name added to a growing list of losses. But what makes Jarrett's death especially unsettling isn't just that he was killed in the middle of the day, it's where it happened, and what had already happened there before. But before we get to the unanswered questions, the stalled investigation, and the silence that followed, we have to go back to who Jarrett Maize really was, the life he was building for his children, and how a place already marked by violence became the final chapter of his story. This is the life and death of Jarrett Maize.
Damn, I can't help my cousin bring bags and hoes. Hey, fellas. Hey, we not accepting cologne as gifts this Christmas. She either smelled it on another guy or her crush wear it. So this year, we not accepting that. So every time you put that cologne on, guess what she gonna think about? Bingo. Yeah, we ain't doing that.
Always asking me what I got on. They be like, hey, Brandon, what you got on? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. That's split. That's split.
In that bed, I don't play no whole lot of games now. Because in that bed, I turn into a real serious fucker. And I do a lot of serious fucking.
Jarrett Maize was born and raised on Detroit's East Side, a place that shaped not only where he came from, but how he moved through the world. While his exact birth date has not been publicly emphasized, his roots in Detroit were never in question. This was the neighborhood that raised him, the streets that taught him responsibility early, and the community that would later mourn him as one of their own. From childhood, Jarrett grew up surrounded by family and familiarity. Detroit was not easy, but it was home. He learned early that stability did not come automatically. It had to be built, protected, and constantly maintained. Those closest to him would later say that even as a young man, Jarrett carried himself with intention. He wasn't reckless, he wasn't drifting. He understood that where you started didn't have to dictate where you ended up, but only if you were willing to work for something better. And Jarrett worked. School was never just about grades for him, it was about momentum. He attended schools in the Detroit area and moved through them quietly without drawing unnecessary attention to himself. He wasn't known as a troublemaker or a show-off. Instead, he was consistent, reliable, the kind of student who understood that showing up mattered. But much of Jarrett's education happened outside the classroom. Growing up on the East Side meant learning lessons early about responsibility, about protecting what's yours, about taking care of family whether you feel ready or not. Those lessons followed him into adulthood and would eventually define nearly every decision he made. As he got older, Jarrett didn't settle into one lane. He built his life in layers.
Don't blend in. Stay in your lane. There's no traffic in your lane. You know what I'm saying?
He worked in automotive manufacturing at Chrysler, holding down long shifts in an industry that demanded physical endurance and mental discipline. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. It paid bills. It provided structure. And for a man who would eventually be responsible for 7 children, stability mattered. But Jarrett didn't stop there. He earned a nursing certification and worked at Beaumont Hospital, stepping into healthcare and patient care. Friends and family would later point out that this choice said a lot about him. Nursing wasn't easy work. It required patience, empathy, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. Jarrett had all 3. Before that, he had worked at UPS, gaining experience in logistics, physical labor, and time management. He moved between industries not out of desperation, but strategy. He understood that relying on a single income stream was risky. He diversified his skills the same way others diversify investments. And then there was Shoe Solutions. Shoe Solutions was Jarrett's own business, a shoe cleaning and restoration service he built himself. It reflected his entrepreneurial spirit and his refusal to rely solely on employment. The business wasn't chasing attention. It was about ownership, about creating something that belonged to him and could grow over time.
My drawing process from start to finish. Start, finish.
Big 4 well, I'm a member. Yeah. Leave a art code like December. What?
Support your friends the same way that you do for the celebrity that don't even know you. If your friend's starting a business, go cop something from their clothing line. If they do a beauty, go get your nails or your hair done from them. I know that everybody got bills to pay for, but if you really my friend, don't tell me you ain't got it right now, because support don't always come in the form of money. If that friend dropping music, post it to your story. Retweet their business. There's tons of support you can do for free, but don't wait till they make it.
If you feel like you need to call me, FaceTime me, or even text, don't take it personal, please. I say this with the most humblest thing I could say. Don't take it personal. I don't like my phone. Don't call me, don't FaceTime me. Like, if it ain't about no money, nothing important, like, just wait till you see me in person. I'm a vibing person. Like, for real, like, we gonna joke, laugh, have a good ass time. Just be patient and wait till we in person. I just hate my phone. I really hate it. And you know, that's just what it is. I really hate my phone. I really wish we can go back to the old ways, but it is what it is. But just wait till you see me in person, and then we can vibe, we can do.
But even that didn't fully define him. Jarrett was also involved in Detroit's local film scene, appearing in independent movies filmed in the city. At the time of his death, he was slated to appear in an upcoming independent film titled Caught in the Crossfire.
It was like that, huh?
All right, here go your file, your requested. Those links will be coming out shortly, okay? If you need anything else, just let me know.
You should have told me your name yet, baby.
They talking about this thing. They trying to go miles for words.
I'm Jennifer.
My name is Jack.
And they're like miles
Nice
for
to meet
shit.
you, Jack. I'm Carlos.
It's nice to meet you.
Acting wasn't a fantasy for him. It was another lane, another way to expand his reach, another place where he could express himself. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing an opportunity. Yet, despite his many pursuits, the center of Jarrett's life remained the same: his children. Jarrett Maize was the father of 7 children. That fact alone shaped everything. He wasn't a weekend parent, he wasn't absent. He was deeply involved, deeply invested, and deeply proud of his role as a father. Family members would later describe him as someone who structured his entire life around providing, not just financially, but emotionally. His children were never an afterthought. They were the reason behind the long hours, the multiple jobs, and the constant drive to build something stable. Very little about the mother of his children was shared publicly, and no details about their private dynamic were ever placed on record. What was clear, however, was Jarrett's consistency, his commitment to showing up, to being there, and to protecting the life he was building for his family. And by the summer of 2024, that life was still moving forward. He had plans, he had responsibilities, he had a future he was actively working towards. But on the morning of July 4th, 2024, just hours into a day meant to celebrate, everything he had built would come to a sudden and irreversible stop. The 4th of July began like any other summer morning in Michigan. By late morning on July 4th, 2024, Clinton Township was already awake. Cars moved through parking lots. People stepped in and out of apartment buildings. Families across the country were preparing for cookouts, fireworks, and holiday plans. Nothing about the day signaled that it would end with loss. But just before noon, everything stopped. At approximately 11 a.m., gunshots were reported at the Peachtree Apartments in Clinton Township, Michigan. When officers arrived, Jarrett was found lying in the parking lot, unwon to the scene. Emergency responders attempted to help him at the scene, but it was already too late. Jarrett Maize was pronounced dead in the parking lot. He was 35 years old, and in a matter of moments, a man who had spent his life building stability for his children was gone.
Tonight, a father of 7 gunned down on the 4th of July.
He was a good person.
How his family is honoring him tonight as the investigation into his killing continues. And delivering results. After mail trucks repeatedly tore up a Waterford man's lawn, we took his complaints to the post office. The update we're getting tonight. Plus good weather for getting outside.
High pressure is building in. That means some sunshine for your Sunday. But how long will it last? I'll have a look at the week ahead coming up.
But we begin with loved ones lifting up the memory of a Detroit father fatally shot on the 4th of July. Thank you for joining us tonight for 7 News Detroit at 11. I'm Darren Cunningham. Jarrett Maize was found gunned down early Thursday morning outside the Peachtree Apartments in Clinton Township. As police continue their investigation, friends and family gather for a vigil on Detroit's east side tonight. 7 News Detroit reporter Tiara Braddock was there and shows us how the father of 7 is being remembered.
The vigil for Jarrett Maize was held here on the corner of Lenox and Linville on Detroit's east side. He was born and raised here, and his family wanted to have the vigil in the area that he called home.
It hurts. It hurts to see someone at 35 years old who had their whole life ahead of them now gone.
Lori Maize, Jarrett's aunt, was one of many people who came to the vigil to honor the father of 7.
He was a good person, a very good person, a very loved person, a good dad. And it's very heartbreaking that he is no longer with us. Very heartbreaking.
Maize was shot and killed on the 4th of July at his apartment complex in Clinton Township.
It was kind of unbelievable, you know, because Jarrett wasn't that type of person. He was a real strong character guy who just went to work, very passionate about everything he did.
Rod Walker is Maize's cousin. He says Maize was loved by so many people.
He was really like a role model to me, so I can picture that he was a role model to a lot of others, you know.
Maize worked at Chrysler, and according to his aunt Lori, he accomplished so many things in his 35 years of life.
He owned his own company called Shoe Solutions. He worked at Chrysler. He was a nurse by trade. He also was a skilled trades. He had trained for that. He worked at UPS. He worked at Beaumont as a nurse.
While Maize's family is mourning his death, they are also seeking answers in his murder.
What we do want to see is we do want to see justice. We want people to speak up. This is not a time to be quiet. We want them to tell what happened so this can, this person can be prosecuted. They took a father away from a lot of children.
If you have any information that will help police solve the murder of Jarrett Maize, make sure you contact them. You can find their contact information on our website, wxyz.com.
But what investigators and the community would soon realize was that this shooting did not stand alone, because almost immediately the timeline surrounding Jarrett's death raised uncomfortable questions. Not about who he was, but about where it happened and what had already happened there before. Police secured the scene and began their investigation that same morning. Detectives canvassed the apartment complex, speaking with residents and searching for anyone who might have witnessed the shooting. Surveillance cameras on and around the property were reviewed. Evidence technicians searched for shell casings and any physical clues that might point towards a suspect. But the scene offered little clarity. No weapon was recovered, no suspect was identified, and no eyewitness publicly stepped forward. Despite the shooting occurring in broad daylight, the investigation quickly stalled. Authorities confirmed that Jarrett had suffered multiple gunshot wounds and that the shooting appeared deliberate rather than random, but motive remained unclear, and without cooperation from witnesses or clear video evidence, investigators were left with more questions than answers. Then the timeline widened, because as police worked to piece together what happened to Jarrett, another violent incident at the same apartment complex came into focus, one that had occurred less than 24 hours earlier. In the early morning hours of July 3, 2024, officers had responded to a call at Peachtree Apartments involving a domestic dispute. According to police reports, a 29-year-old woman named Jennifer Marie Hayes had allegedly attacked her boyfriend during an argument. The man was stabbed multiple times, more than a dozen, and was rushed to the hospital for treatment. He survived. Hayes was arrested at the scene and later charged with assault intended to murder, a crime that carries a potential life sentence. Same apartment complex, different night, different victims. Authorities would later state that the stabbing and Jarrett's shooting were unrelated incidents, separate cases and separate circumstances. But for residents of the complex, and for Jarrett's family, the timing felt impossible to ignore. And when journalists and investigators began looking further back, the context became even harder to dismiss. Because Peachtree Apartments had already been the site of deadly violence earlier that year. Long before Jarrett Maize was killed, the warning signs were already there, stacking up quietly, incident by incident, without ever being fully addressed. In January 2024, a young mother named Tiana Ross was shot and killed in the parking lot of the same apartment complex during what was supposed to be a routine custody exchange.
Clinton Township police are investigating a homicide at an apartment complex between Weybridge Street and Little Mac Avenue. Police say it happened yesterday afternoon at the Peachtree Apartments. They say responding officers found a woman dead with a gunshot wound. They believe she was in a relationship with the man who shot her. The victim's father identified her as 23-year-old Tiana Shakari Ross. Police believe this was an isolated incident, but they say the suspected shooter could be considered armed and dangerous. Anyone with information can call Clinton Township Police.
The father of her child, Jayon Barnes, was later charged with her murder. It was a case that shocked the community, not just because of the violence, but because of how ordinary the circumstances were meant to be. A child exchange, a shared space, a moment that should have ended safely. But it didn't, and that was only the beginning. Just months later, in April, another shooting occurred in Clinton Township, leaving multiple people injured. Details were limited, but the message was unmistakable. Violence in the area was no longer isolated, it was recurring, and it was escalating. Then came July. First, on July 3rd, police responded to a violent stabbing at the same apartment complex. A woman was arrested after allegedly stabbing her boyfriend 14 times during a domestic dispute. He survived, she was charged, the case moved quickly through the system. But less than 24 hours later, the violence returned. On July 4th, Jarrett Maize was shot and killed outside his apartment building. And before the community could even process that loss, another shooting occurred nearby, this time leaving a woman dead and a man critically injured. 3 violent incidents, 3 separate days, all within the same small radius. Within a span of roughly 6 months, the area surrounding Peachtree Apartments had seen repeated acts of violence, stabbings, shootings, and deaths, each one leaving behind shattered families, unanswered questions, and growing unease. For residents, this wasn't just a crime trend, it was a shift in daily reality. People began paying closer attention to who was outside, who was watching, who was walking behind them. Simple routines like getting into a car or coming home at night carried a different kind of weight. Sirens became familiar background noise. Police tape became something people expected to see, not something that surprised them. So when investigators began looking into Jarrett's murder, many hoped this would be the moment where answers finally came, where pressure would force progress, where the pattern would be taken seriously. But that didn't happen. Days passed, then weeks, and then months. No matter how long people waited, no arrests were ever announced, no suspects were named, and no detailed updates were provided. There were also no press conferences explaining where the investigation stood or what leads were being pursued. No reassurances offered to a community that had already been through too much in too short a time. And as the silence stretched on, it sent its own message, that whatever happened to Jarrett Maize, whatever led to him being killed outside his home, was not being resolved quickly, and possibly not at all. And for Jarrett's family, the silence became its own kind of trauma. They had lost a son, a brother, a father, and now they were being asked to wait indefinitely with no explanation and no sense of progress. But they refused to let his death fade quietly. On July 6, 2024, just 2 days after the shooting, family members and loved ones gathered for a candlelight vigil on Detroit's east side at the corner of Lenox and Linville. The location was intentional. This was where Jarrett was born, where he was raised, where he learned what responsibility meant long before adulthood. Dozens of people showed up. They lit candles, they released balloons, they shared stories. Family members spoke about who Jarrett was beyond the headlines: a provider, a hard worker, a father of 7 who structured his entire life around making sure his children were taken care of. They talked about his work ethic, his generosity, and the future he had been building. And they asked the public for help. They reminded everyone listening that someone knew what happened in that parking lot, that someone saw something, that silence only protected the person responsible. But as time went on, the case remained stagnant. The Clinton Township Police Department continued to say the investigation was ongoing. The Macomb County Prosecutor's Office released no updates, no new leads made public. For the family, watching another case from the same apartment complex move swiftly through the court system only deepened the frustration. The stabbing case involving Jennifer Hayes progressed rapidly. She was arraigned within days, bond was set, hearings followed, the case advanced to trial. In November 2025, a jury returned a guilty verdict after deliberating for only a few hours. Meanwhile, Jarrett's murder remained unresolved. The contrast was difficult to ignore. In one case, there was a surviving victim who could testify, an alleged perpetrator arrested at the scene, physical evidence, clear charges. In the other, there was a man killed in daylight with no public witnesses and no visible accountability. And without cooperation from the community, whether out of fear, distrust, or silence, investigators were left chasing fragments. Jarrett's name eventually appeared on the National Gun Violence Memorial, listed among thousands of Americans killed by firearms each year. Social media posts continued to circulate, describing him as a devoted father, an entrepreneur, a son, and a friend. Some posts mentioned 3 children, others mentioned 7, but the truth remained the same. He left behind children who would grow up without their father, and his case began to echo another familiar story. Years earlier, another Detroit father, Don Jefferson Jr., was shot and killed near his home in day broad light.
They've gone far too long without getting the justice they deserve. A grieving Detroit family breathing new life into a murder case that has gone cold. We'll start there at 5:30. It has been 10 years, almost to the day, since Don Jefferson Jr. was gunned down in the middle of the night on Detroit's east side.
And today, his family came forward hoping a new reward will draw up clues in the case. Our Priya Mann spoke to them as they search for justice.
Don Jefferson Jr. spent the day boating with friends when he got a call to come back home. Around 1 in the morning, there was a knock at the door, and when he answered, he was shot and killed.
It's been 10 long years, and the information is there.
Don Jefferson Jr.'s family is pleading for someone to come forward.
As a family, we're just looking for closure, and we want other families and everyone else in the community to know that this person is still out there. Let's not give them any more opportunity to be a burden to someone else's family or to hurt anyone else.
It's been nearly a decade since the husband and father was killed in his front doorstep. He was shot in the 19,000 block of Hickory Street near 7 Mile and Shaner on the east side. He was just 34 years old.
He's missed out on a lot of things. He's missed out on a godson that he's never met. And we just want closure.
He was definitely a good man, and he didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves to be killed by anybody.
The family has no idea who would want to hurt the aspiring designer and the father of one. With no new leads, the family is turning to Crime Stoppers to help solve the cold case.
We do keep in contact with the detectives, and they are not getting cooperation from people that they call, want to interview.
I think after 10 years, that's enough time to
give information out to help bring a case to be closed, especially a case like a murder that's been unsolved.
Crime Stoppers is offering a $2,500 reward for information that leads to an arrest. If that information comes in before midnight, they'll add another $1,000 to that reward. And of course, your call is anonymous. I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
His murder went unsolved. His family spent years pleading for information, and even more than a decade later, they were still waiting for justice. The similarities were haunting. Different victims, different years, same silence. And for communities already burdened by violence, the message felt unmistakable. When witnesses are afraid to speak and accountability stalls, justice becomes uncertain. Jarrett Maize was not just another statistic. He was a father who worked multiple jobs to provide for his children, a man who built something out of nothing, someone whose life was cut short not because of recklessness, but because violence found him in a place that should have been ordinary. More than a year later, his family is still waiting for answers, waiting for accountability, waiting for someone to come forward. And until that happens, Jarrett's story remains unfinished, not just in police files, but in the lives of the 7 children who lost their father, and in a community still asking the same question: how does someone get shot to death in daylight and disappear into silence?